I think we've just gotten our first eyesight on Hokulea, just offshore here, getting ever closer as the crowds press in.
That's right, and so is Keahi Tucker, who is alongside Hokulea. Let's check in with him one more time. Hey, Keahi.
Aloha, everybody. It's showtime. The sun just came out. The water is turquoise. Canoes everywhere you look. Dozens and dozens of canoes escorting the Hokulea right now. It just switched towboats. It's now going along at a pretty good clip, 4 knots, about 5 miles an hour, heading toward the tip of Magic Island. We are just outside the surf break here. Ala Moana Bowls on the inside. A south swell is running, and you can actually feel the swells coming in. I hope all of these canoe paddlers are okay toward the entrance of the harbor, because it's going to start rocking and rolling here in a little bit. Just an incredible spectacle all the way out far offshore. As far as you can see, boats, people blowing their own poo they brought with them on their canoes, tossing flowers into the water, and on board the Hokulea just smiles, flashing shakas and saying hello to the supporters who've come out. People are starting to shout out well wishes and cheers. And yes, from here we can see the tip of Magic Island now, and this, I believe, is the first moment the Hokulea crew members are seeing what awaits them. This mass of humanity, these well-wishers on shore, and it must be hitting them right now. Wow, this is what it means to all these people. It's this important to be here and welcome us all home. I'm talking about some of the originals: Buffalo Keaulana, Snake Ahi, Ben Young, Nainoa Thompson, Pomai Bertelman, who captained the ship from Tahiti, and many, many more, including dignitaries from around the world. The President of the UN General Assembly, Jean-Michel Cousteau, the son of Jacques Cousteau, on board right now. UH President David Lassner. They're all on their way now, just outside the harbor mouth, getting ready to enter the harbor. I believe at this point it's a logistical exercise, with the Coast Guard needing to clear the way and make sure all of these canoes don't try to fit into the harbor there next to Ala Moana Bowls. That could be disastrous. I know they're going to do their best to keep all the other folks out and just let the Hokulea have clear sailing on the way in, and we're going to try and allow that as well. But as we sign off here for now, just look around at all the boats gathered. An incredible moment here. We're feeling the vibe as the Hokulea makes its final approach to Magic Island and its triumphant homecoming after 3 years. Back to you.
All right, Keahi, I want to get you, before you go, how closely can you see the faces of the crew, and do you see any signs of emotion and excitement? I mean, it's got to be hitting them, as you mentioned them, at this point right now.
I'm just guessing at that. I think it's a pretty good guess. I cannot see their faces from here. We're separated by quite a few canoes, as you can tell. But I did have moments where we were very close with them, and just teeth, white teeth, because their smiles are so big, you know. Hugs and handshakes and just good times. You can almost feel the glow coming from that canoe. It's such a majestic figure cutting against the Honolulu skyline right now, and you just know, to be on board, those people are filled with their own sense of awe that this is really happening, and it's happening right now, and the moment is upon us, and I can feel all around me people in that same mood, just filled with love and aloha for this great achievement.
Keahi, you mentioned earlier that you saw people throwing flowers. Here on land, we've been hearing different protocol and chants, Oli. What are you hearing from the people who are paddling out there right now?
They're cheering. You might be able to see a lot of the canoe paddlers lifting their paddles up in the air, a gesture of celebration. More and more, you know, it's a tight pack there. We're having to keep a little farther back because we're on a larger vessel. But the folks who can, they're starting to spray water and shout. Everybody's got their Hawaiian flags flying, and this is the moment. The chihus and just the poos are going off. There's no coordinated activity, but it's just an overwhelming sense of celebration and happiness. And I bet you as it gets closer to land, it'll be even louder where you are, because you have thousands of people along that shoreline. And I tell you, from where we're standing, it's incredible. It's an impressive sight.
We don't have an official count, of course. They had estimated potentially 50,000 people here at Magic Island. So we'll just dip into our Hawaiian vocab and tell you it's choke. That's our new scientific assessment on how large the crowd here is.
And we'll go with that, probably.
I think that's a good assessment.
For the rest of
That's
the
how
day.
it'll be in the record books.
Before Hokulea gets in the port here at Magic Island, I had a moment where I looked across at Amy Kalili and our eyes started to get a little misty. This arrival of this canoe means different things to different people. It's one, a worldwide voyage, an amazing feat by our Polynesian Voyaging Society. But I think it speaks more to the culture of our islands, with so many things that have set us back, whether it be health, culture, music. These are one of those few successes that we really have to cherish and look at and say, you know what, we've done it. We've not only done it, we've affected people around the world with it, and we've also affected Polynesia. We have, from the top of the triangle, us, to the two corners on the bottom, we continue to affect on what other people do and how they feel about their cultures and how they move forward within their own circles and different islands. So this is a significant event today. This is not only us as Hawaiians, of course, but us just as a people, us here in Hawaii, taking pride and saying, you know what, this is a significant moment where we are truly trying to make a difference here in our island home and around the world.
Definitely, you know, it's been 30 plus years, if you will, that you've seen all of these things kind of go through this period of revitalization and resurgence, and we know how to celebrate. Hawaii, we know how to celebrate. But I think for a lot of people who have been, you know, in the trenches, if you will, in the various movements and doing different things, this is going to be a huge celebration. Again, not just for the voyaging community in particular, and this is a huge accomplishment for our Ohana Va'a and the Au Va'a is another Hua'olalo Hawaii for you, Au Va'a, the fleet of canoes that are here today. But again, you know, going back to what you're talking about, Billy, for everybody who's here, for all of you who are at home, this is truly going to be a huge one in our history. I think right now, a lot of us look back to the launching of Hokulea, or the birthing, if you will, Hanau Ia'ana o Hokulea, as, you know, that must have been an amazing day, and we watch all the footage from that, and we see all the people, right? And that's, to me, that's what today is going to be. We're going to look back at this. Kids are going to look back at this and talk to their parents about, oh, what was it like? And so.
But also, it's an interesting moment where we can look back at those who came before us. Steve, you mentioned that we just lost one of the founders.
Right, Ben Finney.
Just a month ago. There are so many people that have been interconnected along the way. It goes back to Nainoa Thompson being on the lava fields of Hawaii Island with Lacey Veach. And of course, Lacey was a member of the Space Shuttle crew Columbia, which Columbia talked by satellite phone to Nainoa Thompson. He's up in space. Nainoa's in the middle of the ocean. They're in the middle of the No Na Mamo voyage, and they're not only speaking by radio to thousands of people who are listening, but thousands of students who are also listening at the same time and plodding along and following. It speaks to our kupuna, it speaks to our future, and that's some of the legacy that is being left here today with this arrival.
Billy, you talk about Lacey Veach, and we'd be remiss if we did not mention how unbelievably integral he was to the inception of Malama Honua. He took a photo from space looking down at our Pai'aina, our Hawaii Islands, and he thought, what if Hokulea were to sail around the world? And it was that moment in 1992, I'm covered now in chicken skin, that he shared with Nainoa Thompson, and Nainoa just kept that in his mind. It was this voice that grew louder and louder, and when it came time to sort of decide what was going to happen with the Polynesian Voyaging Society, how would we move forward in generations, how would we ensure that this reclaimed ancestral knowledge of celestial voyaging without the use of any modern day instruments, how do we bring up another generation of wayfinders and navigators? he came back to this idea of Malama Honua sailing around the world, and that was a result of that conversation he had with Lacey Beach.
And we've seen the reaction worldwide because the world is listening. I mean, we had the World Conservation Congress last year. Everyone was talking about Hokulea. Everyone was talking about where Hawaii was as far as conservation and sustainability. And then you think about what Hokulea has come full circle with Papa Mau coming over and teaching the wayfinding to the Hawaiian people, and then having to go back and teach it back to the people of Micronesia, and how that's spreading throughout the course of Polynesia and across the world. Hawaii is on a platform where they are able to now be the experts and to spread this knowledge to the next generation and to everyone across the globe. It's
and here
amazing.
she comes now, our star of gladness, as she makes her way into the Alawai Boat Canal. Let's join back with Dan.
You can start to hear the cheers as the crowd grows here at Magic Island, and Hokulea makes its way to the mouth of the harbor.
Look at the crowds who are greeting her as she pulls in. We've been hearing the cheers throughout the morning, but this is definitely the loudest and most enthusiastic we have heard this very large crowd be here this morning.
You can see the kia'i who are standing on the floating deck that was erected specifically to allow for a point of anchor for Hokulea as she makes her way in today for her homecoming ceremony. They're there to stand guard to ensure the security, the safety of all of the crew members. And behind them, of course, you can see Hawaiian Water Patrol, the U.S. Coast Guard, our own EMS, emergency services, and lifeguards. And here she is in all her glory.
Everyone has their phones out as they capture this historic moment, a moment that has been decades in the making, with Hokulea sailing around the world for the past 3 years. We've seen such a resurgence of the Hawaiian culture, whether it's the language, whether it's hula, chanting. I think even in our lifetime, we have heard so much more of it, and this has to be such a proud moment for so many people. As you have mentioned, Billy, for whether you're Hawaiian or not, it is very emotional here today.
You think about that back in the 70s, gosh, Hawaiian music and the Sunday Manoa, that resurgence of the music, the hula, that's when the Merry Monarch Festival was starting up. And here's Hokulea 41 years later, stronger than ever.
Stronger than ever. She's just beautiful. Just to look at.
Isn't she gorgeous? Look at her with her
so gorgeous.
crab claw sails up.
All wide open.
And our Hawaiian flag flying.
You have to forgive us. A couple of us took breaks to record this for ourselves. Because
okay.
again, we're here front and center as history takes place in front of our eyes.
The keiki in front of us have already started chanting.
You know, and there's some of the early warriors on that vessel right now as you're watching her come in. There's some of the 76 crew members on there. And you, all the way down to, you know, some of the ones who just became seasoned navigators on this voyage. That va'a right now is representing so much more than just a double-hulled canoe.
Absolutely.
You know, when you look back at the history of Hokulea and you talk about, you know, the 70s, it is amazing to me when you read the historical accounts that we could have almost lost this culture, and for it to come full circle here today must be so emotional and just a culminating moment for so many people here.
Definitely. You know, I think, Billy, you nailed it on the head when you said that, you know, it's a symbol of strength, or she's out there looking so strong, because it is. It's an indication, and this isn't, let me be clear, he Hawaii au, and I'm proud of it. But this is not a Hawaiian thing. This is a Hawaii thing.
Yes.
Definitely. And it proves to us what we can do when we stand on the shoulders of the people that came before us, whoever that is, and you believe in the knowledge that they hold, and that knowledge has application today. That's why, Steve, all the things that you were saying as it relates to Malama Honua sustainability, it's because we're just Hawaii, you know, relatively speaking. For some people, this little place, Ivainakonu, are right in the middle of the ocean, but we have so much to offer and share. And I think this is a symbol of that as well, you know, that we are a very strong people and a very strong place.
That's a great point, Amy. And obviously, a lot of us grew up here in Hawaii and we're local. We're not Hawaiian. And we know the history. We're not as invested as those of you who are here with us today, but we'd like to share a little bit in this tradition and to understand it a little bit more as to how it affects not just Native Hawaiians, but the state as a whole, right?
Oh, we all share in the glory of today, every single one of us. From actually that moment, again, when we talk about her birth on the shores of Hakipu'u back in 1975, that was not just Native Hawaiians who made that possible. You talk about the co-founders of the Polynesian Voyaging Society. This was truly a reflection and a collection of all people who find Hawaii to be special, and that's regardless of koko or blood or quantum or any of those things. When you look even at the faces reflected upon the 250 volunteer crew members who have given of their life to be on this voyage for the last 36 months away from home, those are not all Native Hawaiians either, and yet this is, as Amy mentioned, Billy, Grace, Steve, you, such a proud moment for us all. It is in looking back at our past and where we have come that we are able to define our future, and we're seeing that today.
I'm going to change the context a little bit here. There is a psychological thing about sailing on a vessel such as this, because you sail on the vessel, you become one with the crew, but then when you get off that canoe, there's a withdrawal that is there.
Yes.
Yes?
The Va'a Blues.
Yeah, the Va'a Blues is it where, you know, I was fortunate to be on board over the past week for I was on the canoe, let's say, for a hot minute. Maybe
We'll
for
give
like
it to you.
3 days, you know, and maybe 15, 20 minutes after I left the space and the place that the Va'a were and the crew were, I like really missed them. And you know, a lot of people hear this Olalo no'eo, hemoku hewa, hewa hemoku, that the Va'a becomes your island, it becomes your home for however long you're on there. And like you said, there's this interdependence between people and between people and her being Hokulea and the canoe. I don't think you can replicate that.
This is a philosophy that comes from Papa Maupiailug himself, of course, our master pole navigator, who brought back this tradition of celestial wayfinding and voyaging without the use of modern day instruments. He's the one who taught that the canoe, the Va'a, is your mother, and that the navigator is your father, and that makes all those on board, whether they're physically on the deck or not, your brothers and sisters.
You can hear the crowds getting louder as Hokulea approaches the dock, where the crew members will be disembarking in just a few minutes from now.
You can see Nainoa Thompson right there at the center of the canoe, making his way to the front.
Right.
I'm sure there's got to be a lot of emotion going through all of them, him in particular.
The fact that Hokulea managed to circumnavigate the globe, covering more than 40,000 nautical miles over these last 3 years, and not a single safety issue, every single crew member came home, and with them, they have brought knowledge that has been collected at every port along the way in this mission to Malama Honua to care for our island Earth. All of that, initiatives, sustainability, preservation, the importance of just, again, taking care, is on that deck right now, returning home to be shared with the people of Hawaii.
Let's talk about safety for a couple of moments. We've talked all throughout the morning about Hokulea, and we haven't mentioned one name, and that's Eddie Aikau. Of course, we lost him in that second voyage that was supposed to go to Tahiti, but ever since then, safety protocols have been put into place. Every single voyage has had an escort vessel, and now if you train with a canoe, there are a lot of safety things that you have to go through to make sure that things are pono, you are right, and that you are knowledgeable, you have that manao to sail, whether it be Hokulea or any one of the vessels in the Ohana Va'a.
Eddie's sacrifice for Hokulea is exactly what has kept the legacy of this Va'a and Ohana Va'a alive today. He knew how important Hokulea was when he got onto that surfboard to paddle for help in 1978. When Hokulea had capsized after leaving in rough weather, inclement weather, weather that on this day and age, they would not have left. It's something that Nainoa Thompson talks about a lot. There's no reason to rush. The ocean provides, Mother Nature needs to be listened to, and had they done that, perhaps it wouldn't have happened. But he left, he paddled out because he knew that Hokulea could not sink on that day, that everything that they had managed to accomplish from 1975 to the maiden voyage in 1976 needed to continue on. And so because of his importance to the Polynesian Voyaging Society and Ohana Va'a, there are members of the Aikau Ohana on board Hokulea right now for this homecoming.
And Nainoa fought him, right? Because Eddie wanted to go and he said, no, don't go. In fact, he threw a life vest at him, right?
He did. He wanted him to take a life jacket as he made that paddle away, and Eddie took a couple strokes, took off that life jacket, threw it back to Nainoa and said, I'm more comfortable without it, brother. And that was the last.
It's amazing when you hear the accounts, because the crew members who were still on Hokulea at the time thought that Eddie would be the only one who may survive that night, because they were freezing cold, they were scared, it was dark, and yet amazingly, they were spotted by a plane that happened to be flying overhead. The timing of that and the fact that any pilot could have spotted them in the ocean is truly amazing, and that is what saved them.
Thank goodness for that Hawaiian Airlines flight that saw that flare in the early morning hours.
And really the message though, as Hokulea continues on, bringing up again future generations of wayfinders and navigators, is the hope from that day. Not the loss, but the hope that continues on, and you can feel it. It is tangible in this moment that Hokulea is preparing to dock on her return from Malama Honua.
You know, this is a hope realized. I guess I'm sure Nainoa and others are already talking and thinking about what's next. I mean, what could be beyond circumnavigating the globe?
Right. Yeah. You did that. Now what?
Now what? Now what? Well, we were talking in the newsroom the other day about the levels of navigator. I mean, they're all in that 9th of 16 levels. There's really no one to take them up, or any authority or person that can lift them beyond the 9th level of the 16. But clearly, Nainoa and others have elevated themselves. I mean, is there something going on there, perhaps?
You know, I don't know in particular, but I'm assuming a huge part of that too is the evolution, the natural evolution of wayfinding that's going to take place. And you know, so if those additional levels are levels that they themselves start to redefine and recreate, there is no doubt in my mind that the learning and the increase in their level of expertise will continue.
As the VIP members come off Hokulea, what can we expect from the reception here today?
You're definitely going to see a lot of what's already happened with each individual va'a that has come in. Not only the welcoming oli that the multitude is giving and offering to the crew joining in those oli with them. There also have been some individuals. I saw Mehana Hain, who was out giving oli and pule to the crew and the va'a that are coming in. Keone Kuoha is also out there. He's actually a crew member himself. So we'll no doubt see some more of that. You can't tell from where we are, but there is a section off area for the crew members. It doesn't look like that right now, but there will be some interaction there as well before they enter into what is called the Kali'i rite, or a rite of passage ceremony that I think is going to be beautiful.
It's going to be so gorgeous. What a treat for us here in Hawaii and around the world. The last time a Kali'i rite ceremony was held with so many eyes on it, I don't know that there is a year that we can even try to reference, but this is a spear throwing ceremony that really shows that we have brought the best of our best. We have landed here on your shores. This is what we have to offer you.
Traditionally, it's proving yourself, right?
Yes.
So the spears are thrown at a young warrior
who will then capture them, catch them, to show his prowess, his strength, his dexterity.
And this young warrior is
Sam Kapoi.
Yeah, right.
Sam Kapoi, a PVS, Polynesian Voyaging Society member, also a member of the OEVTV Ohana. Amy, tell us about Sam.
Sam is an amazing individual. He hails from Waianae, from the west side, if you will, of Oahu, and yes, he has been part of the voyaging community. I believe he was in and around the group that is known or goes by Kapuna Keiki,
yes,
which was a group of very young, up-and-coming holokai or sailors that had a desire to learn this traditional voyaging techniques, and Sam was one of those individuals. So over time, his skill, his exposure, you know, developed in terms of this va'a and voyaging world. And then yes, he was on a number of legs throughout the worldwide voyage.
And he has a somewhat famous brother, doesn't he?
Yes.
Yes.
Somewhat. Yes.
Somewhat.
Yes. A fellow Hawaii warrior, Max Holloway.
On a literal level.
Yeah.
A warrior.
Yes. Yes.
Okay, so that's what's happening today. What goes on over the next few days? Because there's a summit, right?
This is so neat. So they're going to actually have to remove Hokulea's mast. And Amy and I were talking about how they're planning on doing this Sunday morning so that at low tide, she can somehow wiggle her way, sneak underneath the Alawai Canal Bridge in order to be in place for this summit that's taking place next week.
Yes, and you know, actually, a little point of trivia, if you will, Hokulea had to do that multiple times when she was on the east coast of the United States. She went up and through a bunch of waterways where she had to do that. Basically,
Take the mast down? How long does it take to get the mast down? Like an hour?
I don't think it takes that long. And this mast walking, because they can, especially when they have to do it time and time and time again, they get pretty good at doing it. It is an undertaking, if you will, but something that has to be done at various times. So we'll see her do that again.
And this summit will feature inspirational speakers from all over the world talking about these messages of Malama Honua, the importance of caring for our island Earth, these sustainability initiatives that they have collected at each and every one of these ports and stops along the way around their 40,000 nautical mile journey.
You know, I know Dan mentioned the growth of navigation on the higher level, on the higher ends. What about the growth of schools here in Hawaii since Hokulea has taken off? I would imagine that there's been a lot more interest with that.
Definitely, you know, that was one of the huge initiatives. In addition to spreading this message of Malama Honua literally around the world and to, you know, 40 some odd ports around the world, it was also, there was a huge desire to make a change, notable change within Hawaii's Department of Education. And so there was a huge educational effort. There was an educational team that worked together with the Department of Education to try to incorporate these tenets, if you will, of sustainability and caring for planet Earth. And naturally, I think the keiki, the opio, the youth here in Hawaii, as a result, know more about that content, but they also know Hokulea. They know more about her.
Yeah, there's a lot of these kids grew up with Hokulea in their lives, and maybe don't remember back to those early years when this was something new, something that wasn't real just yet.
1995, No Mamo Voyages, and then that's the one where Lacey Beach was talking to the kids.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's not just the message of Malama Honua spread through Hiki Analia when she returned home to travel through the Hawaiian Islands while Hokulea continued on the international ports. But Dan, when you talk about education, this actually started again in the 70s with this Hawaiian Renaissance, the emergence of these Olelo Hawaii immersion schools, those keiki who grew up, kaihuni education, who are now leading our protocol, who have brought back this ancestral tradition that is helping to guide the reverence of today.
Well, you could hear it in the crowds, in the chanting. I mean, in 1976, there was no real chant to welcome. Here, I mean, you walk down the entire coastline, you're hearing that everyone knows and everyone's chanting. It's just amazing.
And I don't know if we've even mentioned this yet, but in August, Hokulea is going to be traveling across the state to further educate people, because I feel with kids, these kids anywhere, to see it is very different from watching it online or watching its journey around the world.
Yeah, that's about education. It's also about mahalo to all those who have supported, either with in-kind, with energy, with time, just with sending good thoughts their way. I think that mahalo tour, if you will, is an important part of saying thank you to the islands.
It appears Po Navigator and Polynesian Voyaging Society President Nainoa Thompson is addressing the crew, and unfortunately we can't listen in. But what we can tell you, Dan, is you talked about this Mahalo Hawaii, which is exactly what this final leg of Malama Honua will be departing in August. Nainoa has talked about the fact that the most important leg was Malama, Hawaii in 2013 before they ever left the shores of Hawaii, and then Mahalo, Hawaii, to come back around and to share these messages of hope and inspiration that they've gathered along their voyage.
We should mention that there's some pretty special people on board this crew. This is a ceremonial crew of Hokulea. They've had a couple of crew changes as they arrived here in Hawaii, but there's some 76ers on there. Let me see as we take a look at some of the names on there. Some of the people who've also come along the way and learned their craft, like Iolani Murphy, Homai Bertelman is on there, Billy Richards, of course, is on there, Snake Ani is on there, Clyde Aikau. There's a whole bunch of people there. Kalepa just jumped on board.
Kalepa Babayan, of course, yes.
So there's a whole bunch of special people that are on board that Va'a right now.
You know, and as you mentioned, Kalapa, another thing I think that it's inevitable, if you will, that this would have happened, but you also see literally on the deck of the canoe generations traveling with each other. So Kalapa Babayan, Kalapa and his daughter Kala, who is actually part of the navigation team coming back home from Tahiti to Hawaii. To me, that's another huge message about this day and this voyage, that although we came close to the brink, I don't think we're going to ever get there again.
You know, I have to talk about the Kauai crew and their chanting. They had generations down there, but there was an energy there. I don't know, there's a pride in Kauai. You know what I'm talking about? It's a little different. I mean, okay, we can go all the way back to when they're the only island that didn't get conquered by King Kamehameha, but there's a pride there and a joy that we heard and saw as they came ashore. Just a magical moment.
And we did see the mayor, Bernard Carvalho, actually in the crowds earlier.
Was he starting the Chihu? I'm pretty sure that was him.
I think that was a really loud one that we heard earlier this morning. I tried to get him to come over, but he was too enthralled in what was happening, so I couldn't get his attention. But he's easy to spot in the crowd. He's a very tall man.
You mentioned the multiple generations and the keiki getting involved as well, and the youth. How popular is that for a lot of people that aren't involved in this and just think that it's maybe just a subculture within Hawaiian culture? I mean, it's bigger than that. It's become a huge thing within the Hawaiian Islands, right?
It's a thing.
It is so huge. We mentioned only one ohana when we talk about the Babayans, but there's also Po navigator Billy Richards, his daughter Mahina, who they sailed together during Malama Honua. There's the story of Clay Bertelman, who built Makali'i for his brother,
and
whose
then his daughter
Pomai,
was on this last leg, right?
This is, so yes, it is absolutely a thing, not just within own ohana lineage, but then in those communities that they're from.
Looking back on the dates, I mean, we've talked a lot about 73, 74 when PBS started. I mean, the first launch in 75, the first Tahiti trip in 1976. We could actually go all the way back to 1950. 1950 is when Mau Piailug became a Po navigator, and that was, of course, at age 18 in Sarawak, Micronesia. If that hadn't occurred, I mean, so we'd have to say maybe that is really where it began in a way.
Totally, and to think the fact that Satawal did not even have their own va'a, that Papa Mau Piailug had been selected as a navigator at birth, as is the tradition of his people, and yet they were not sailing. It was Hawaii that gifted him a canoe decades later so that his own people could carry on this tradition.
Which is why he had said he was so disappointed when he went back to Micronesia after seeing the passion within the native Hawaiians, and to go back there and to see that his own people weren't embracing this part of their culture.
All right, well, you're watching a special edition of Sunrise. We have much more coverage to come. Stay with us as we welcome Hokulea back home. You can see the tens of thousands of people pressing closer to shore to get a glimpse of history. We just saw the crew members, including navigator Nainoa Thompson, disembarking off of her, and he has been warmly greeted by this large crowd.
They had estimated the potential for 50,000 people here at Magic Island, and I mean, I'm not a math major, which is how I ended up in journalism, but I will tell you, it looks a little bit more than 50,000.
Well, I mean, your family alone.
Yes, I know.
Like, you know,
it's like half of it.
It's like half.
Yes, yes.
And they're not even all here.
And they're not even all here.
I think we'll go back to your Hua'olalo Hawaii for the day, which was choking.
Yep.
Choke.
How many people are here?
Choke.
Yeah.
Indeed.
There is about to be some very, very special arrival protocol and ceremony that has to our knowledge, not been broadcast ever. And we're about to get to see that up close and personal.
So this will be different from what we have been seeing throughout the morning when the other crew members have gotten off of their respective canoe, correct?
And not all of the crews are going to be invited. I think there's the 4 major canoes there. They'll have the captain plus 1 other person that will be able to go in to the ceremony. The rest of the canoes, their captains will stand aside to watch, but to participate, to even be in there is a huge honor.
And that's specifically for the Kali'i ceremony, the spear throwing ceremony that we were telling you guys about, again, which is meant to show strength, prowess, dexterity, but mostly to say, we came upon your shore and we brought with us the best of our best.
You know, Mileka, we were talking about this as we were planning for Hokulea to come back, and you said there were actually some concerns about this rite of passage because some consider this to be dangerous, especially with a crowd this large.
Yes, in fact, we did have to get clarification from the city and county of Honolulu that they were going to allow for this ceremony to take place, given the fact that it does involve traditional Native Hawaiian spears, which will be used while this ceremony is conducted.
So thrown, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Just to clarify, this was kind of a proving yourself ritual that would happen when a crew would come on shore, basically saying, hey, we respect you that much that we brought the best of our best, our warriors,
we came
to
here
perform
exactly.
for you.
We came
right.
here and to show you honor, to show you respect in our tradition. What we would like to exhibit for you is the best of our warriors, and that's why we had heard and we had spoken about earlier the fact that the gentleman from Hawaii who will be catching those spears as they're being hurled in the air is Sam Kapoi, a Polynesian Voyaging Society crew member and OEVTV member as well.
Yeah, you saw the crew members. Oh, go ahead.
I had a chance yesterday to talk story with Kyle Nakanelua, who is the individual who more or less is leading this Kali'i rite ceremony today, and he was kind enough to share some insight and a perspective and a background on this ceremony that I hadn't heard yet. And so I'll take a little time, and when we need to cut in, you know, we sure can go take a look at actually what they're doing.
Please do.
But he was talking about how it has to also do with this sense of kapu and noa. And I heard some of the people talking about that today. And kapu is a time, a season, a place where certain things are sacred or they're not allowed. It's a very serious situation, if you will. And there can be a bunch of situations like that. You hear it a lot when halau are preparing for Mary Monarch.
Right.
They're on kapu. And it manifests in different ways.
Kapu aloha on Mauna Kea.
Right. Correct. And so
certain places are kapu. You can't.
You just don't go there. Or when you go there, you only do certain things.
Right.
You don't do other things. And so Kyle talked about this 3-year voyage as a time of kapu, or a very intense season for the voyagers that have been on the various va'a for this whole time. And you know, it's very again, intense, if you will. And now that the va'a are home and these individuals, these kane wahine are coming back, not only on shore, but into their communities. You know, they're going from something that is very intense to something that most may perceive as kind of mundane. You know, every day you go from literally pulling islands out of the sea. Honey, you're home. You can wash the dishes.
You go from superstar
How do we couple that?
to obedient husband.
Babe, yes, the kids still get out of school at 2:30. You can go get them now. I'm sure you remember how to get there, and if not, your keen sense of navigation will lead you there.
Use the stars. Use the stars.
It's so true.
Right. So Kyle was talking about this transition to get back to something that is very serious, that it's not something that should be taken lightly, that this is something that the individual crew members as well as the community need to understand, that these voyagers need to make that transition back into their community because we want them to continue to be as effective and amazing doing what we would assume is the mundane, but now is when the work actually starts. They've experienced all this and they're coming back to their ohana, to their kaiaulu, to their community, and so there has to be this transition. And so a key part of what you will see happening has to do with the lifting, if you will, of this sense of kapu. So what Sam will be doing, you'll see Sam, he is going to be one crew member that is going to be singled out, and he will literally be out in the middle of all of these kane, of these koa, or these warriors, and he is representing every single crew member, and he's going to do what he's going to do. But at one point in the ceremony, there is going to be a noticeable time when there will be particular events that will unfold that is meant to signal the fact that this kapu has been lifted. And now we want these men, it's going to be mostly men, all men you will see, but all of the voyagers are now Noah, if you will, and it's the
Can I just
kapu is
back
lifted.
up? So when the crew gets off the canoe, that they're kapu at that point. They're restricted from doing some things for a period of time, right?
That's what that's the way Kyle is explaining this situation. Especially given our context today, because this is representing the culmination of a 3-year voyage, not just the last stop till here. So, you know, individually, each and every crew member goes through that on their own, definitely. When they get home, they step off the va'a and they're back on shore. They need to go through that process mentally, spiritually, emotionally. But what's going to happen today, we're going to see like a manifestation of that. Something I think that we can all share in, and the references earlier to this is probably something that hasn't been seen, much less broadcast. But to that effect, however, I think it's a way for the community to join into that and to acknowledge that they're back.
As everybody learns their different kuleana, it's the kuleana of the crew to adapt and come back. It's the kuleana of the community to welcome them and acknowledge that they have, you know, these things that they have to deal with and know that changes that they have to make as crew members.
A few quiet moments right now as the crew members bow their heads and a little bit of prayer. As we get ready for the rest of the festivities, we're going to take a quick break and we'll be right back.